For me, this is a very exciting event. It opens our Canadian Comics Corner. Our store's in Niagara Falls here. It's a very, very vibrant area for tourists, and we had this idea of featuring and celebrating Canadian comics. So we thought, hey, wouldn't it be great if we got some great museum pieces, some history of Canadian comics, stuff not for sale, stuff for display. We'd have some informational banners on them, have almost like a museum, I guess. And people have already worked on this before. Other people have done great work on this. But we as a group decided, let's continue. And to bring to light that great era of Golden Age Canadian comics. It started with Better Comics #1 that gave birth to Nelvana and Johnny Canuck and all that stuff, right? And thankfully, other people have jumped on, like Hope and Rachel, and done their own projects, which is great.
I publish small press comic book projects, focusing right now on 1940s Canadian comic book reprints. I previously co-published the book Nelvana Northern Lights, which is one of the world's first female superhero comics that was published in Canada in 1941. And I most recently did Brock Windsor, which is a Vancouver-published comic book from 1944. I've always been a huge comic book fan. I never really had that falling out of comic books that a lot of people have when they're kids. And when I was in university, I was really interested in researching Canadian forms of media. And because I consider comic books to be a very important form of media, I decided to focus my research on that, and that's when I discovered the Canadian whites. The fact that we don't even celebrate our own culture, but now we get to promote our own culture to other countries is something it's absolutely amazing. And it's really nice to have everything collected in one place so that people can actually come and see and understand our history.
The history they're being introduced to is our own Canadian comics history, our own history. It's something that we have to internalize. Not many of us are aware of who is a Canadian when they create comics. And which one, and Walt's done a wonderful thing in putting together in one place, one corner of his store, as much Canadian comic stuff as possible. Starting right from the beginning, these are the first comics here, originals all here, from Walt's own collection, that started off the whole thing 75 years ago.
When I first told my wife that I wanted to start collecting and dealing and trading in comic books, she's like, what are you doing? Like, please don't fill our basement up full of comic books. I really, you're a grown man. And slowly, I have pulled her in. I've sucked her in, and she knows more comic book stories than I do. But it's amazing when you hear about these celebrities like Kevin Smith. When he came on Degrassi, the very first question I asked him was like, dude, you must have a kick-ass comic book collection. He's like, yeah, it's pretty hardcore. And I'm like, how many? He's like, oh, about 25, 30,000 comics. I'm like, you are super nerdy. He's like, yeah, well, it is what it is. And, you hear about Nicolas Cage and Seth Rogen and all these guys. Again, we're all kids at heart. It doesn't matter if you're a huge success or you're a guy who still lives in your mom's basement or whatever. Comic books sort of relate to everybody, and we all have that fondness and memory of our childhood.
What Walter and Ivan have set up here, this little mini museum about Canadian comic books over the years, and that is just unprecedented, and especially in Niagara Falls, where you have the Ripley's Museum and you have the Wax Museum and all kinds of stuff, and it's a tourist center. This is really just the beginnings of this as far as I can see. I mean, I can see this going on to another space, expanding much more than this, and it's just a fabulous idea to put this in one spot.
You've got tourists coming in and out of here all day. And what do tourists want more than anything else? They want to take back something Canadian. They want to learn about something Canadian. And here they can pick up Captain Canuck material, books by modern Canadian authors, everything, and take it back with them and have something Canadian.
It's not just that it's Canadian content, it's that it's good content. These are great books, these are great heroes, and we need more of them. And having a great event like this not only brings awareness of the comics themselves, but also brings the community together. And that's just amazing.
Comic books, it's just, for me at this age, it's a nostalgia thing, it's a treasure hunting thing, and I just have such a fondness to that era, to that generation, or that time in my life, that I want to have a piece of that with me always. Hey, I'm Pat Mastroianni. You might remember me as Joey Jeremiah from Degrassi, and you're watching Comics Asylum.